It was a cold spring evening in New York City. The skyline shimmered with restless energy, but inside Studio 7, tension hung thicker than the city fog. Tonight was not just any primetime show, it was the episode everyone was talking about. The host, Jake Morrison, was infamous for his sharp tongue and cutting political jabs. Tonight, he was determined to rattle his guest, Ibrahim Traoré, the military leader from Africa, whose name had begun echoing worldwide. Morrison's eyes gleamed with that familiar hunger for a dramatic showdown, the kind that would trend by morning. As the cameras rolled live, millions of Americans and viewers across the globe tuned in. Morrison leaned forward, voice dripping with sarcasm. "So, Ibrahim, how's it feel to lead a continent still struggling with military leaders in charge? You know, the kind who never quite figure out how to keep peace." A hush fell over the studio. The audience sensed a trap, but Ibrahim's face stayed calm, almost serene. His eyes, deep and steady, met Morrison's. The world was about to witness something unforgettable. Everyone waited for Ibrahim's response. A simple man, a soldier with scars deeper than the eye could see, standing tall not just in stature but in dignity. Then, with a voice as steady as a heartbeat, Ibrahim said, "Leadership is love, not violence." 6 words, just 6. Yet they landed like a thunderclap. The studio went silent. No laughter, no jeers, only a wave of stunned disbelief. Morrison blinked, caught off guard. That wasn't the fiery retort he had planned. That was something different, something honest. Across social media, millions paused their scrolling. The clip exploded overnight, shared by celebrities, political analysts, even critics who had never spoken kindly of Ibrahim before. His words weren't just a response, they were a revelation. The phrase sparked a firestorm of conversation worldwide, forcing people to rethink what true leadership looked like. And for many, it was the first time they truly saw Ibrahim, not as a military figure, but as a man of profound wisdom and heart. Few knew Ibrahim's story, the boy behind the calm, composed man. Born in a small village shadowed by war, his early years were filled with loss. His father, a farmer, was taken by violence when Ibrahim was only 7. His mother raised him with fierce love and stories of courage. Every night she whispered, "True strength is not in power, but in protecting those you love." That mantra guided Ibrahim through his youth, shaping the man who would later stand on that New York stage. The military was not a choice made lightly. It was a path forged by desperation to protect his people from suffering. When he spoke on the show, it wasn't just words. It was a lifetime of pain, hope, and unwavering love distilled into a single sentence. That night, as millions watched, they didn't just hear Ibrahim. They felt him, and the world began to understand the weight behind those 6 simple words. The cameras kept rolling, but the energy in the studio had shifted. Morrison's usual smirk vanished, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. For the first time, he wasn't in control. The audience, once waiting for a spectacle, sat in stunned silence. Then slowly, applause erupted. Not just polite clapping, but a genuine, heartfelt response. Backstage, producers scrambled. Social media buzz exploded with comments. "Powerful. I've never seen a response like that." "Leadership redefined." In that moment, Ibrahim was no longer just a guest. He was a symbol. A quiet force reminding the world that strength could come wrapped in grace, not aggression. But this was only the beginning. The storm that followed would test not just his resolve, but the hearts of millions who saw in him a reflection of their own struggles. By dawn, the clip was viral, millions watching the 6 words that silenced a nation. In Paris, a young student paused her history exam to watch. In Lagos, a mother held her children close, tears streaming as she whispered, "This is the man we needed." News outlets scrambled to analyze the moment. Political commentators debated the meaning behind Ibrahim's calm. Celebrities tweeted their respect. Even some critics admitted they were moved. In countries scarred by conflict, people saw hope. Hope that leadership could be gentle, yet unyielding. For those who had lost faith, Ibrahim's words were a balm on old wounds. Yet amid the praise, Ibrahim remained humble. Leadership is love, not violence, he repeated quietly in interviews. Because without love, what is leadership truly worth? Meanwhile, back in the studio, Jake Morrison sat alone, replaying the moment in his head. His plan to embarrass Ibrahim had backfired spectacularly. For days he avoided interviews, wrestling with an unexpected truth. Ibrahim's words echoed louder than any insult or jab. Late one night, Morrison wrote in his journal, "I sought to humiliate. Instead, I was humbled, a lesson in grace." That vulnerability transformed him. He reached out to Ibrahim privately, seeking dialogue rather than confrontation, a move no one had predicted. Their eventual conversation, raw and honest, became another chapter in a story that was no longer about politics alone. It was about healing, respect, and the unexpected power of humility. Weeks after the show, Ibrahim received a letter. It wasn't from a politician or a fan. It was from a young American soldier named Jason, struggling with the weight of his own battles overseas. Jason wrote about his doubts, his fears, and how watching Ibrahim's calm strength had helped him find new hope. "Your 6 words reminded me what real courage is," the letter read. Ibrahim read it quietly, feeling the invisible thread connecting 2 men worlds apart, both shaped by conflict, but choosing different paths. That night, Ibrahim wrote back, "Strength isn't in fighting alone, but in lifting others. We are all soldiers for peace." Jason's story would later be shared widely, becoming a symbol of healing, proof that words can reach across oceans and wounds. But not everyone was ready to embrace Ibrahim's message. Some in his own country whispered doubts, accusing him of being too soft, too hopeful for a world that seemed unforgiving. Ibrahim felt the pressure. His people looked to him for answers, for protection. Could love truly overcome violence in a land so scarred? Late one evening, alone in his modest office, he stared at a faded photo of his mother, the woman who taught him that strength was kindness. He whispered to himself, "If I falter, what hope remains?" Then, with quiet determination, he chose to carry the burden anyway. His journey wasn't just about leadership. It was about the fragile courage it takes to hope when hope feels impossible. Across the Atlantic, a famous actress watched the viral clip late at night. As Ibrahim spoke, her eyes welled with tears. She tweeted, "In a world so quick to judge, Ibrahim reminds us what humanity looks like. His strength brought me to tears tonight." Her words sparked a wave of support from fans worldwide. People shared their own stories of struggle and resilience, inspired by Ibrahim's grace under fire. This ripple of emotion grew, connecting strangers across continents. The world was waking up to a new kind of leader, one whose power was measured not in might, but in mercy. For Ibrahim, the tears and tributes weren't just praise. They were proof that love could truly echo louder than hate. Despite the growing admiration, Ibrahim lay awake one night, haunted by memories. The faces of children lost to war flickered behind his eyelids. Innocent lives he had sworn to protect, but sometimes couldn't save. He thought of his mother's words, "Leadership is love," but wondered if love was enough in a world so harsh. A single tear slipped down his cheek as he whispered to the darkness, "How do I carry their pain without breaking?" But with dawn, a quiet strength returned. For every loss there was a promise, to lead not with fear, but with a heart unshaken, a heart that carried both grief and hope. In classrooms from Boston to Berlin, teachers played the viral clip for students. Young faces, some skeptical, others curious, watched a man who refused to be defined by violence. A young girl in a small town whispered, "Maybe leaders can be kind." Her words spread through social media, sparking a wave of conversations among youth about respect, dignity, and courage. Ibrahim's 6 words became more than a viral moment. They became a lesson in humanity, taught in schools worldwide. Back home, Ibrahim's children watched the news. They didn't fully understand the global storm their father had stirred, but they saw his tired eyes and felt his silent sacrifices. One evening, his youngest son climbed into his lap and said, "Daddy, you're my hero." Ibrahim smiled, feeling the weight of that simple truth more deeply than any headline or viral clip. It was for them, his family, his people, and the countless unheard voices that he carried on, quietly rewriting what it meant to lead. Months after the broadcast, Ibrahim received an unexpected invitation to speak at the United Nations. The world wanted to hear more than 6 words. They wanted the story behind the strength, the vision behind the calm. As he stood at the podium in New York, thousands watching live, Ibrahim's voice carried the weight of a lifetime spent in both conflict and hope. He spoke not just of leadership, but of healing wounds that ran deeper than borders, of building bridges where walls once stood. His message was simple, yet revolutionary. True peace begins when we lead with love. The standing ovation that followed wasn't just for a man. It was for a new era. But leadership is never easy. Amid the praise, whispers of betrayal crept in. Some powerful figures feared Ibrahim's message, threatened by its power to unite. Plans were whispered in shadows to discredit him, to silence his voice. Ibrahim faced these storms with quiet resilience, knowing that true leadership meant standing firm even when alone. He remembered his mother's words again. Love is the greatest strength, and clung to that truth like a lifeline. One rainy evening, news broke of a violent attack in Ibrahim's homeland. Innocent lives lost, families shattered. The nation wept. Ibrahim's heart broke too. But instead of fury, he called for calm. He reminded his people of the path he had always chosen, the path of peace. His voice, steady and full of compassion, became a beacon through the storm. "I share your grief, but hate will not heal us. Love must be our answer." That night, millions wept not just for loss, but for the courage to keep believing. As the world watched, Ibrahim returned to the studio for a follow-up interview. This time with a different host, one chosen for fairness. The questions were harder, probing deeper into his fears, his dreams, and the cost of leading with love in a world full of violence. With quiet strength, Ibrahim spoke about loss, hope, and the burden of carrying a nation's heart. He said, "Love isn't weakness. It is the hardest fight we will ever face, but the one that saves us." Viewers everywhere felt it, the raw honesty, the courage behind the calm. Months later, schools, leaders, and everyday people began sharing Ibrahim's message, not just the 6 words, but the whole story. In cities and villages, people lit candles, sang songs, and spoke of peace as a choice. Ibrahim's leadership had become a movement, a legacy written not in battles won, but in hearts changed. His mother's words echoed everywhere. Strength is kindness in action. On a quiet evening in New York, Ibrahim stood on a rooftop overlooking the city lights. He thought of the journey, from a small village, through war, to a moment that changed millions. A young girl nearby asked him, "Are you afraid?" He smiled softly and said, "No, because love is stronger than fear." That night, millions around the world watched, cried, and hoped. And for the first time in a long time, the world believed in the power of love to lead. If this story moved you, if Ibrahim's strength touched your heart, Please hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps spread this message of hope and love to more people who need it. Let's start a conversation that changes the world, one heart at a time.